How are we doing, cyber world? Stephen Palmieri coming to you today, and we're coming to you guys live. We're just going to get all these channels set up here. Awesome. I think we're a live multi-channel. So Stephen Palmieri coming to you live. For those of you guys who know me, thank you for following me. And for those of you guys who don't know me, my company and I, we help folks raise their credit scores, pay less in taxes, and improve their accounting processes. And today we're going to talk about the tax code. Specifically, why is it so complex? Why is it so confusing? Well, the answer is actually very simple. The tax code is so complex and confusing because it's created by Congress, and there's not a whole lot that Congress does that's well thought out, except that they think about it except for what can get them reelected, either by pleasing their constituents or pleasing their donors. In reality, what happens, you've got a tax code that's over 100 years old, and there's over 9,000 sections, subsections, parts of it. And over the last 100 years, a lot of our political leaders basically do a couple of things. When they make laws, obviously they're making laws to solve a problem or to please their constituents, but the tax code is supposed to be some sort of a fair way of, just paying your fair share. But what happens is there's carve-outs that are created because of lobbyists, but there's also policy that is intended to be made through the tax code. As an example, going green, okay? Why can you buy a Tesla or a certain type of a electrically energy efficient vehicle or other product and get a tax credit? Well, you can get that because it's in the tax code. Why is it in the tax code? Well, because policymakers think, oh, well, we want to try to create policy or change policy or shift the way that people behave. So let's create this tax credit. Hopefully the taxpayers, the Americans, are smart enough to know what's out there, and then they may make a buying decision based on, hey, you buy a Tesla, a certain type of energy efficient vehicle, you get $7,500 tax credit. Okay. Probably most people don't think of that, but some people do. And if you get a certain type of vehicle, you can get a tax credit. So that's a perfect example of Congress trying to create policy through the tax code, and what I mean by that is obviously everything that they pass laws for creates policy and is attempted to change behavior. That's what laws do. But doing it through the tax code is an entirely different kind of a beast, because you end up 100 years later, where we are here today, we have a tax code that's confusing. And don't just take my word for it. There's an organization called the Taxpayer Advocacy Office, and we're going to go ahead and share our screen here. And this is actually an organization created by Congress to help taxpayers navigate with the IRS. And so let me go ahead and share the screen there. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see my screen. What I have here is a brochure of a PDF of a publication by the Taxpayer Advocate. Taxpayer Advocate, you see their URL up here, is actually a subdomain of the IRS. Okay, but this is actually a separate department created by Congress to help taxpayers free of charge navigate the IRS. If you've got problems, you can reach out to the Taxpayer Advocate. Kind of sort of like, if you get charged with a crime, you can get a public defender if you can't afford a lawyer. It's just kind of the same sort of concept. The Taxpayer Advocate was created by Congress as a governmental agency to help you navigate another governmental agency. And so the Taxpayer Advocate, who deals with navigating the IRS on behalf of taxpayers, the complexity of the tax code right here. The most serious problem facing taxpayers and the IRS is the complexity of the Internal Revenue Code, the tax code. And here's a couple of bullet points. Among other things, the tax code makes compliance difficult, requiring taxpayers to devote excessive time to preparing and filing returns. You look at your Form 1040 and the instructions. I haven't even read the instructions lately, but it's like 50 or 100 pages, the instructions for your Form 1040. And your 1040 is your personal tax return. How is that simple? requires significant majority of taxpayers to bear the monetary costs to comply. That's absolutely true. It's your responsibility to figure out how you're going to be able to afford to comply. Obscures the comprehension, leaving many taxpayers unaware how their taxes are computed. Right. Fill out this form and then go to that form, and then it flows through to this box on this form, and then good luck to you. Facilitates tax avoidance by enabling sophisticated taxpayers to reduce their tax liabilities. Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that from the sophisticated taxpayer's perspective, but there's definitely something wrong with that from the perspective of the tax code is literally supposed to be a way to pay your fair share and to pay taxes. It's not supposed to have 9,000 sections, subsections, and parts to it. And it's over 100 years old. Okay. You're not supposed to be able to say, oh, let me go buy a Tesla and get a $7,500 tax credit rebate. You're supposed to say, hey, let me just go buy a Tesla or any other vehicle, and what are the taxes that I'm going to pay, right? I mean, that's kind of the simple way to do it, but the tax code is a law. Law is created by Congress, and Congress, well, they're just trying to get reelected every 2 years, unless you're a senator every 6 years. But still, you're trying to get reelected. Undermines trust in the system by creating an impression that many taxpayers are not compliant. Which is true, though. Most taxpayers are not compliant in that they're probably paying too much in taxes, which is interesting. That's a whole nother conversation. And generates tens of millions of telephone calls to the IRS each year. Now, I can personally tell you, dealing with the IRS, it is very antiquated, very inefficient, super inefficient, actually. And there's no need, let's get this thing unshared. There's no need for that lack of efficiency in the year 2024, except their database is like 50, 60 years old, something crazy amount of old time like that. So you've got a tax code that has been written, rewritten, added on, repealed, chopped up over 100 years. You have Congress who tries to create policy. Again, go ahead, we're going to just create the $7,500 tax credit for certain energy efficient vehicles. Where does $7,500 come from? They pull it out their ass. You're asking yourself. That's what Congress does. There is no constitutional amendment that requires that Congress pass laws that enable a balanced budget, right? So they're just like, oh, 7,500, that sounds like a good number, right? And so there you go. If you're wondering why is it so complicated, that's the high level view of how we got to where we are. Now, that being said, how do you go to where you're trying to go? If you've got issues with your taxes, with your finances, let me know. Okay, that's what my team and I do all day long, every day. We're here to help you. We can get on an authorization or a POA with the IRS. We can communicate with them if you're having issues. If you haven't filed taxes, hey, no problem. That's what the IRS calls a non-filer. You're a non-filer, and there's millions and millions and millions of people just like you. And so there's ways to work around that. So reach out to me if you think you're paying too much in taxes. We've got folks that come to us. They've sold businesses. They've done things previously, and they're like, man, I just wish that I was able to talk to somebody up to, that point to where there was a taxable event. Well, that's one thing about my team and I is we're here, we're accessible, and we provide that higher level of service. So feel free to reach out to me if you've got issues with your taxes. Would love to talk to you. Feel free to chat in your comments below. Let me know what you think about this. And all that being said, I want you to remember one thing: fix your finances and improve your life. I will see all of you on the next show. You guys take care.